So I see you've worked extensively with Java microservices. Let's talk about resilience patterns. Are you familiar with the retry pattern in Java?
Yes, definitely. The retry pattern is crucial for building resilient applications, especially in distributed systems where transient failures are common.
Great. Could you explain how you'd implement retry functionality in Java specifically? I'm interested in how you'd use annotations for this.
The retry annotation is a declarative way to apply retry logic to methods that might experience transient failures. Instead of writing boilerplate retry code with loops and exception handling, we can simply annotate methods that need retry capability.
Which frameworks provide retry capabilities? In Java,
there are several options, but the most popular ones are Spring Retry and the Microprofile fault tolerance specification, which includes retry if you're working with Jakarta applications. You might use the Jakarta retry specification. Libraries like Resilience4j also provide excellent retry implementations.
Could you show me a practical example of using the retry annotation?
Absolutely. Let me demonstrate with a typical microservice scenario where we recalling an external API that might occasional. Why fail? Here's an example using microprofiles at retry annotation. In this example, I'm annotating a payment processing method. The max retries parameter is set to 3, which means it will try up to 3 additional times after the initial failure. The delay parameter adds a 1000 millisecond delay between retry attempts. The jitter parameter adds a random variation to the delay, which prevents multiple retried calls from happening simultaneously and potentially overwhelming the system. The retry parameter specifies which exceptions should trigger a retry. We only want to retry on transient failures.
That's clear. How would you customize the backoff strategy?
Great question. For more advanced scenarios, we can use exponential backoff to increase the delay between retries progressively. Here's an example with more customization. With this configuration, we're setting a maximum of 5 retries, starting with a 200 millisecond delay. The max duration parameter limits the total time spent on retries to 2 seconds. The abort parameter specifies exceptions that should immediately abort the retry sequence.
What about Spring's implementation?
With Spring Retry, we can implement exponential backoff like this. This is powerful because the multiplier of 2 means each retry will wait twice as long as the previous one. The first retry waits 500 milliseconds, the second 1000 milliseconds, the third 2000 milliseconds, and so on, up to the max delay of 5000 milliseconds.
How would you handle recovery or fallback scenarios?
That's where we can combine a retry with fallback patterns. For example, in Microprofile, this approach gives us resilience in depth. We retry transient failures. But if all retries fail, we gracefully degrade to a fallback response rather than throwing an exception to the caller.
Excellent explanation. You've demonstrated a solid understanding of the retry pattern and its implementation in Java. This kind of resilience engineering is exactly what we're looking for in our microservices architecture.
Thank you. Designing for failure is essential in distributed systems, and annotations like retry make it much cleaner and more maintainable than manual implementations.